So here's a position you've probably found yourself in at some point whilst playing Stellaris. You're clicking the new game button and you're trying to decide what type of empire you're going to be playing this time around. Well, there is so much more to the game than just picking your ethics, your civics, your traits, your origins, and of course, your various cool ship designs. Are you going to play as a total war species? Are you going to assimilate everything left, right, and center? Of course, only if you have synthetic dawn. Or are you going to dominate the galactic community, bringing peace and prosperity to the galaxy, only for your house of cards to come tumbling down when either the Khan or the fallen empires awaken? These are the questions that you can ask yourself, but the real question is, how are you going to be playing? Because the game is designed to have rather distinctive playstyles that you can choose right at the start of your run, and it's not particularly obvious that these are available to you. We talked about this subject back in 2017, and since then there have been significant changes to the POP system, as well as the addition of the galactic community, the updates to the various Federation types, and so much more. So we're going to readdress this subject and taking a new definition on what are the differences between playing wide and tall. Now we're going to kick things off here with playing wide. Playing wide is the de facto standard. If you're a person who just picked up the game, you're going to try to get the largest possible galactic empire that you could possibly muster, taking territory after territory, swiping down Xeno empires, or oppressing them under your boot of vassalization or tributation. Well, these are pretty standard, and there's a lot of definitions that we can throw towards wide empires. They usually have dozens of planets, sometimes in the hundreds. Yes, that is totally possible. You have massive amounts of resources coming from both space, mining stations, but also massive amounts of tech coming in from your planets. You've got loads and loads of conquests, and you can force your CBs all the time, and you're really focused on that expansion and supremacy. You have large trait networks, ecumonopoly for alloy production. Your preferred ascension, probably synthetic, because they are great generalists and also extremely powerful. Although in Federations they got a little bit of the nerf bat, but still they are not a force to be trifled with. Now, Total War empires excel at playing wide, and any origin that synergizes with this sort of playstyle will work really well with this. And of course, what are you going to be your preferred precursors? Well, of course it's going to be the Ba'ul or the Cybrex. Ba'ul because of being able to generate Gaia worlds anywhere, and Cybrex because of that delicious free ring world, plus the Warforged that give you basically unlimited alloys. Now, there's a lot of weaknesses attached to playing wide as well. You will require whole planets of bureaucrats to stabilize your empire sprawl and actually go somewhere on the tradition tree or in the tech rankings. That right there is pretty important. You're going to be fighting a lot of other empires that are going to be on a similar tech level as you, which is not always a good thing, because those that have the power as well as the technology are the ones that win. Now, you'll also probably have a lot of conquered non-specialized worlds that contain species that you will have to integrate, and they'll be unhappy for a long time, which will slow your production rate. And especially if they're machine empires, you can't really integrate them, and you will end up with whole worlds that are basically desolate, especially if they've built any machine worlds, and then they become effectively useless, unless of course you go down the synthetic path, and you will be able to use them then again. Also, tracking worlds becomes really tedious if you don't automate them, and I personally don't automate sectors at all because, well, let's be honest here, I don't think anybody really trusts the AI to be able to handle the upgrading and stabilization of sectors efficiently, so you're going to end up with entire areas of space that are not necessarily optimized for gameplay, and that right there is something that you want to keep in the back of your head. Now, you'll have large fleets to fight against threats. You can do aggressive politics. Good potential of being able to take on any of the fallen or awakened empires in the late game and having a relatively easy time fighting the Khan. But you will be distributed a lot. You will be having to fight a lot of conflicts on a lot of fronts, and that right there could be problematic versus Total War empires that can swoop in and take entire chunks of your territory, which is sometimes a little bit of a weakness, unless of course you've got yourself gateways, and then of course all bets are off. Now, you'll have a strong place within the galactic community because of your fleet power and as well as your massive economy. And you'll be able to take control of that community quite easily by pushing things into your direction. And anybody that doesn't want to vote for your stuff, you just invade and add them to the width of your empire. The empire is wide and beautiful, and there is nothing that can stop you. Finally, there is the issues of factions. Very wide empires tend to have a lot of ethics divergence, which means there's a lot of factions to deal with. Now, in the early game, this may cause some problems with your influence income and also causing you to not being able to expand all that much. In which case, you can just go ahead and try to tributize or vassalize somebody, tick up the influence, and then integrate them later on. That's always a good way of doing things, I would say so. But in the meantime, you will have massive amounts of factions that all want their own thing, and you're going to spend quite a lot of time and resources trying to suppress them. That right there can be a bit of a problem. Then there is a playstyle that I feel not a lot of people are utilizing, or at least if you're a new player, this is probably not something that pops in your head, and that is the tall empire. Tall empires are defined by only having a few planets, habitats literally everywhere, as well as megastructures popping up relatively early. Nearly all resources are coming from these habitats, and they're focused on science as well as production because of its powerful districts that you can get through said habitats. Again, alloy production is crucial here, as those habitats do need to be built, so trying to throw in an ecumonopole or two is generally a good idea, especially if you're trying to go for those megastructures. One of the real problems here, however, is the fact that you're going to need to do a significant amount of specialization. Specialization is the key to playing tall, and that can be seen by going through what I would say is the preferred ascension perk here, which is bioengineering. You can tailor your population perfectly to work on every single habitat, as every habitat needs to have its own specific purpose. There is no generalization with playing tall. The habitats themselves are specialized to such a degree that they are either research, mineral, energy, or trade production. And these are very specialized all by themselves. And it basically means that if you're going for that bioengineering ascension, you can specialize every single habitat to the T to optimize for the resources that are being generated there. Why are habitats so good for playing tall? Because they utilize a resource in space and multiply its effects. If you have two minerals hanging out on a planet somewhere and you just mine them with a normal mining station, you will get two minerals. That's relatively straightforward. But if you plop a habitat on there, that multiplies due to the districts that can utilize the resources even better. And specifically, the research districts are becoming incredibly useful in these scenarios, because you can just plop on a single science tile and be like, yeah, I will have 50 people working on this single unit of research. And that right there really illustrates why tall empires are so powerful, even only using such a small footprint in space. Now, there are of course weaknesses attached to this, and that is relatively straightforward. You are so vulnerable in the early game. You only have a few planets, and you're probably not even going to leave your starting constellation within the game. Maybe a little bit further out to get a couple of choke nodes here and there, just so that you can put down a fortress habitat, because yes, those are a thing, and that's pretty much it. From that moment onwards, you're going to need to save up your influence and save up your alloys to get more and more habitats on their way. Now, another problem there is that sooner or later, because if you're going down the bioengineering path, you will start churning out pops like no tomorrow, and all of those pops need to live somewhere, which is why you're going to need to transfer into ring worlds sooner or later, which basically means that the Cybrex is really the go-to for tall empires, not only just because of the ring world that you can get with him, but also the Warforge, which can generate untold amounts of alloys just by throwing in some of your minerals, and that right there is really the clinch. You can of course get some of the other ones, let's say the youth or something along those lines, and still get a couple of pop bonuses, etc. But the Cybrex are really the way to go for tall empires. Now the real problem with this is that tall empires by this specific definition are only really feasible if you have either utopia or federations. There is really no other way to go, because utopia gives you the access to the habitats technology, and federation gives you the king of playing tall, which is void dwellers, who automatically have access to habitats to begin with, which is a little bit of a sad thing, because I really wish that there would be more efficient ways of playing tall whilst not lagging behind. Not being able to generate the amount of pops that you need is a real problem for tall empires, which means you need to spam those habitats everywhere. But because you have such a small footprint within the galaxy, it means that you can focus quite a lot on your defenses. Having massive stations everywhere, habitats with fortresses on them, tons of fortresses, make them a real challenge to take, especially if a tall empire is well developed. And in addition, if a tall empire is managed to set itself within the galaxy at large, they'll be able to churn out fleets like no tomorrow because of their massive alloy production, which they would normally need in order to generate their habitats. In the end, playing tall is actually quite a lot of fun, because still you need to juggle all of those habitats, and they still have a limited amount of space on them, and being able to balance the amount of habitation that is available on said habitats is really challenging, and it's really fun, and you should definitely go and try it out. But yeah, tall empires dominate the galactic community with their massive tech output as well as their economy, because alloys are king in the game, aren't they? I would like to say so. Finally, there is of course the issue of factions. With tall empires, you can very easily control your factions, and that is done by the following. First of all, never have anybody get any migration pacts with you. You want to keep full control of your population. In addition, because of all your worlds being confined to such a small amount of space, you can put black sites in your system stations very easily to make sure that ethics do not drift into negative locations that you don't want to have. And also the amount of unity you produce, and after a while you have so much of it, you'll be able to basically do whatever you want when it comes to building habitats. They are not all that expensive, and you can spend those on edicts down the line. The real kings, as I mentioned, void dwellers, and also kind of sort of ring world origin are really the way to go here if you want to try them out, but it's absolutely doable with a normal build empire. Just be aware that the habitat technology does not drop until tier 3 of engineering. In the end, the main difference between wide and tall empires is not the size of their space. It's not the size of their economy. They can both generate massive amounts of resources within their allotted area they can work with. However, there is one defining feature that is different between these types of playstyles, and that is the usage of alloys and influence. It's very important to remember this. A wide empire will use their alloys on fleets, on stations to control territory, and in addition, influence will come to play there. Whereas tall empires are using their alloys and influence to build more habitats for their population to grow even quicker. Make no mistake, both of these types of empires are total powerhouses if they're played correctly. And just because an empire is small doesn't mean you should underestimate it. It could be a wolf in sheepskin. Thank you so much for watching this video on the differences between wide and tall playstyles. If you have an opinion and you think, hey, ASpec, this is something you should know about playing tall, or maybe even the mysterious Everest build that so many people talk to me about, feel free to give it down in the comments below. In the meantime though, I want to thank my patrons for making this video possible. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have the time to update a video from 2017, which is hilariously out of date. So thank you so much. Once again, comments below, and also I've selected a couple of videos on your screen right now that may be of interest to you if you are somebody who plays Stellaris or want to learn the magnificent world of the game itself. We're going to go and log off here. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take good care of yourselves. And as always, playing wide or playing tall, I don't care, as long as you have fun.